Welcome to The Wise Idea with Christopher J. Harris. I am your host, Christopher J. Harris, and I'm so excited to welcome you to today's podcast. It's a part 2. So if you're listening to this podcast today, you're probably going to want to go back into our website, thewiseideapodcast.com, and check out part 1 of this interview for it to really all make sense. We are going to do our best today to help build a bridge for you in this introduction, but we've been having some incredible guests over the past few weeks sharing their personal life stories. And in this case, it's been primarily with women. We're going to have some interviews lined up here later on for the brothers, for the men. And it's the reality that many people are suffering silently. And that's mental health issues, or in this case, Ms. Sa-Vi-La Morgan, our special guest, has been talking about what does it look like to struggle with infertility? What does it look like to struggle with losing a child, or never even being able to conceive for that matter? And these are some tough things to deal with, but Ms. Civilla has been helping to educate us on this reality. Listen, if you are new to our podcast, again, I want to personally welcome you, and I'm extremely honored that you took the time to hang out with us. This week, I want to invite you to hang out with us every week. Here, we are focused and on a mission to provide strategies for hearts to be inspired and heads to become wise. Our goal is to inspire everyday people to live wise lives. And I'm personally passionate about life, leadership, family and marriage, and ministry. That is the church. So that's the focus of this particular podcast. And every single Thursday, we give you new content, new information to help keep these incredible conversations going. John Maynard Keynes was quoted as saying, "Ideas shape the course of history." And I would simply like to edit that by saying that wise ideas positively change the course of lives. Make no mistake about it, my friends, and we say it all the time, when wisdom becomes a part of your life, your entire life gets better in every area. If you're new to us, I want to let you know and remind you, if you didn't know this already, that we are on multiple platforms. We are on YouTube, we are on iTunes, we are on Google Play, we are on Stitcher, and we are on TuneIn. We are working on adding more platforms down the road, but I'm so excited to have so many different platforms already that you can tune in and hang out with us. I also know that a lot of you may listen to this podcast with friends, you share it with others, you listen to it in groups, and I would simply like to invite you to please share that with us. We'd love to hear about the groups and listening parties that are happening all around the world. I'm going to share our email address here in just a moment. I do want to say thank you to those of you that have already been sharing the podcast and sharing and engaging with the tools, the show notes, the information with your family and friends and on social media. And that really means a lot to me, and I'm humbled by that. I do also want to invite you, if you're not already subscribed, consider this to be your personal invitation to subscribe so that you can get the new episodes each week right in your inbox. And you'll be able to stay abreast and stay plugged in to everything that's happening, any notes, any special announcements that we offer. Our email address is info at thewiseideapodcast.com. And you are getting ready to hear part 2 of an incredible conversation that we've had with Miss Sa-Vi-La Morgan. So, you know, the interesting thing about this too, I think, is, and I want to back up to this, you said this earlier, I don't want to skip over it or make light of it. You know, you talked about being a PK. For people that may not know what that is, it's a short term, affectionately known PK as a preacher's kid. So, you know, one of your parents or both of your parents are pastors and in ministry. And, you know, there are lots of anecdotal and sometimes cultural euphemisms that go along with that notion of being a PK in terms of behavior or ideas. Unfortunately, many people think that PKs get the short end of the deal and turn away from the faith. But that's not the reality, I think, for many. So to hear your story in terms of the hysterectomy in 2011, obviously you were an adult by then, but how has this reoriented your faith? What do you do now, or how you approach life differently from a faith standpoint as a result of all of this?
Well, I think even more so now, I believe that my faith means that I'm in relationship with Jesus. This is not religion for me. I don't even like when people say, oh, she's religious or he's religious. What does that mean? Because I believe that it's got to be a relationship where you rely on your relationship and you rely on Jesus, because what else are you going to do? I mean, I had a crossroads moment in my life, not even way before all of this, way before the hysterectomy, before the platform. I came to a crossroads moment where I had to make the decision on my own that I was either going to go left and do things the way the world did. And honestly, if I had done that, I probably would have had a child by now. But who else knows, who knows what else would have come with that. And then I could choose to go right and go with Jesus. And in doing so, I ended up not having the child or the husband. And so it's a decision. It's a decision I made. I don't regret the decision. But, being a PK, we do get the short end because people judge us. They think that just because they know a handful of stories where preachers' kids have turned away and gone wild, left and went out into the world, well, they probably did it because of the church folk. So, I don't like the notion that preachers' kids are wild and crazy. I don't like it at all, because if you've met any wild and crazy preachers' kids, it was because of the church folk. Let me be blunt. But again, I made the decision to go the way of Jesus, and honestly, I wonder sometimes what would have happened. I've wondered, should say, what would have happened if I had just gone my own way. And those are just thoughts that will pop up in your head, and there's nothing you can do about it. I feel like I did the right thing, and I'm going to stick with that. I'll stick with my relationship with Jesus. Has he answered my prayers? All of my prayers? No. The two things I wanted the most out of life were a husband and a kid. That's all I wanted. And I didn't think that was too much to ask, because many other people are doing the same thing. It's pretty normal. So when he answers no to both of those things, then yes, he does have something else in mind. And do I look like a weirdo? Maybe society sees me as a weirdo, or, what's wrong with her? Maybe she's got a personality issue. I don't think I have a personality issue. I don't have a different personality issue to the average woman out there, but this is where he wants me. So I've got to go with it, because if I go in the opposite direction, it's not going to work out. That much I can say for sure.
Yeah, this is so amazing in that I think it gets to the heart of our faith for those that follow or subscribe to following Jesus Christ. And I would almost venture to say for any faith for that matter, and that is, do you trust the God that you say you believe in?
Right.
And, in Christianity, we have this notion known as the sovereignty of God. And that is essentially that God can do what he wants to do when he wants to do it without necessarily having to answer to anyone. And that's a bitter pill, a bitter pill to deal with and a bitter pill to handle. So, Miss Morgan, if somebody is listening to this and they are really dealing with this notion of not having control, unanswered prayer, especially for these things that are deep rooted desires that we have for life. As Proverbs says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. What would you tell them? What are the starting points to really just, where the rubber meets the road, really trusting God? What's the starting point there?
The starting point is to know that if you really trust in God If you really want to trust in God, you're going to have to go all in. And if you go all in, there are going to be times when you're going to have to dig in and just have that toehold, that foothold, and make the decision that you want to go His way. You may not agree with it. Do I agree with just, not getting those prayers answered? No, I don't agree with it. But I have decided, like the song says, I have decided to follow Jesus, so I've got to be all in. And it's easier said than done, because you see everybody else seeming to be living a normal life. As life progresses, as a childless, not by choice woman, the conversation in our group right now is many of us are at the age now where we're going to we were watching for the baby announcements, and now we're watching for the grandbaby announcements. So it's like it never ends. So we have to, I think adversity strengthens us. If it doesn't kill us, it will strengthen us. And so I believe I'm strengthened. I do have my moments. Like I said, Mother's Day, for the first time in my life, I will not be going to church on Mother's Day in May. And that was actually based on an interview I did with a wonderful woman in her 70s. She's in her 70s. She's a Christian woman. She goes all over the world, India, all of these different places she's been, doing things for Campus Crusade for Christ. She is a Christian woman. And when I interviewed her, I had another light bulb moment when she said, "Civilla, you don't have to go to church." It was amazing. I never considered the fact that I don't have to go to church on Mother's Day. And the reason I mentioned earlier that it could be pride, it could be shame, is because in most churches on Mother's Day, they ask the mothers to stand up. And the women who are not mothers remain seated. Some of them will stand up in defiance and say, "Well, I take care of my grandchildren," or well, not grandchildren because that means they're mothers, but maybe step grandchildren or children in the community or whatever. They make something up and they stand up. Well,
I've got godchildren.
Yeah, I got godchildren, or whatever the reason is, they stand up. But if I decide to remain seated because I know good and well that I don't have any children, and people are standing up, when somebody's standing up and you're sitting down, aren't they looking down at you? That's where I think the pride thing comes in, because then I feel like I'm being looked down on. And not only looked down on, I'm being looked over, because as they're passing out, whether it's flowers or a mug or whatever, they're passing over you and handing a mug to the woman next to you who's standing up.
So I've got to ask this as a pastor, and it's funny that you brought this up because I was thinking this earlier. Is there anything that the church can do to have made you or to make you comfortable on Mother's Day to still attend? I hear part of your discussion here, and I'm wondering, we have lots of ministry leaders that listen to this podcast. So I'm trying to hear what some of the solutions are for this. Are there any?
I believe there are, and every church is going to do something different, or it will have to do something different. Maybe it depends on the size of the church. Maybe it depends on a lot of things. But I think the number one thing that churches need to do is recognize the fact that there are women who do not have children, whether they could not, didn't want any, whatever it is. Recognition. Stop ignoring us and pretending that on Mother's Day, every woman in the audience is going to stand up. There's nothing worse than being ignored. So I think the bottom line, if they don't want to give a mug to the woman who never had a child, at least say, you know what? We recognize the fact that not every woman is a mom, and we applaud you for just being a woman. We know that you've probably done something for some child somewhere at some time. We want to honor the mothers today, but we also want to recognize you. And then however the recognition looks, maybe it's just that spoken word, or maybe they get something else. But the recognition is key. Stop pretending. Stop looking the other way.
All right, guys, we'll be right back. I know you are right in the middle of an incredible conversation and you were gleaning things from this incredible conversation that we're having currently. We'll get right back to it. I was enjoying myself as well, but I wanted to interject really quickly and just invite you, if you are listening to this podcast, that probably means that you are also on social media. Well, listen, I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. As a matter of fact, y'all, guess what? I'm also on Pinterest. I would love to have you as a part of my tribe, my following, my connection, my social media family. And so if you're on any of those platforms, I'm at CJ Harris. CJ Harris, ONE. Would love to connect with you. So while this commercial is even going on, before we get back into the conversation, why don't you go online right now, pull your devices out, pull your computer out, and hit the follow button, hit the friend request button, hit the engage button, and we'd be so glad to have you as a part of our social media following and family. Not only that, as you listen to this podcast, you may be hearing things that are insightful for you, things that are being shared where the light bulb goes off. I would love to hear about those moments. As a matter of fact, you may be listening and there may be questions that you have or things you'd like to share with us that you're hearing. And either way, we'd love to hear from you. So please send us an email. The email address is info, I-N-F-O, at ChristopherJHarris.com. Again, that's info at ChristopherJHarris.com. Not only that, but lastly, if you have a project or a book or a platform that you'd like to promote or advertise with us, you're thinking that this would be a great audience for you to reach and connect with, we'd love to start a conversation with you about that. So please send us an email, again, at info at ChristopherJHarris.com. And in turn, we'll send you an information sheet and be glad to start that incredible conversation of partnership with you. With that said, guys, let's get right back into this amazing conversation that we're having. Be sure to pull your notes back out. It's going to be fun. Let's go. You know, I think this is what you just said is so huge, even beyond this particular tribe of childless, not by choice, acknowledgement of the nuance of life, that life is not binary. It's not just either or. Oftentimes there are layers to issues, trauma, drama, circumstances, difficulties, stations of life of where people are. And part of what I hear you saying, not just with Women on Mother's Day, but in general, a part of the solution for the church to be relevant in our culture today is simply acknowledging that there are certain realities that exist.
Exactly.
Not even that you have to agree with all of those realities or understand all of those realities, or even have the solutions to try to fix those. Some are not fixable, but the acknowledgement of it. Is that what I hear you saying?
Absolutely. There's no way we're not trying to water down the Bible and what the Bible says. We're not trying to make it be all things to all people, because that's not going to happen. But we're not going to agree with everything. I mean, that's just how it is. The Bible tells us what we need to believe and how we need to live, and not everybody lives that way. And it doesn't mean that just because we disagree that we're going to pound them down with the Bible and beat them up. That's not what this is all about. It's just that we need to be aware of who's sitting in your audience.
Wow. Yeah, I think this is so powerful. Our time is getting away from us here, Miss Morgan, and I feel like I can talk to you for another couple of hours. But if someone is listening to this, and obviously you have probably unlocked the story of their life regarding being childless, not by choice, I want to make it bigger than that for anyone that's listening to this, and you are still waiting on God to answer a prayer, or still waiting on God to do something, or you have had to shift your perspective because you realize now that God is not going to answer that prayer in the way that you thought it was going to be answered. Miss Morgan, what do you tell them? What do you say to them?
I tell them to, if they're Christians, if they're Christ followers, tell them to just hang in there And as I said earlier, just dig in and trust that he understands and he sees and he knows why. And there are some things that we're not going to have the answer to until he comes back. That's just how it is. And I always tell people, by the time I'm ready to go to heaven, it doesn't even make any sense to ask him why at that point. It wouldn't matter. He's not going to send me back and let me live my life all over again. So it wouldn't even matter at that point why or why not. But if you're not a Christian, then I'd still say hang in there, do the best. And in both cases, do the best with what you have where you are. And just know that life just didn't go right for a lot of people, but what you do with it is what matters.
It's really interesting. This phrase has come up in several other episodes on this podcast, and I think it's so apropos and relevant even now as well. God can handle our questions.
Mm-hmm.
God can handle our questions. And so, ladies and gentlemen, today you have heard the heart of a lady who has not only walked with God in some of the toughest seasons and reinventing herself and her prayer list, but now she is literally pouring into hundreds and hundreds of other women who have had these same struggles and same issues, and acknowledges that while she is helping others, there are moments that she is still dealing with it herself. And so, Ms. Morgan, thank you for your transparency today and for your honesty in sharing this. If someone is listening to this podcast, this episode today, and they are in the same boat that many of the women that you're helping are in, how can they get in touch with you? What are some of the next steps there?
Well, Pastor Christopher, thank you so much for having me. And if there is a woman out there who is childless not by choice, we have a Facebook group called Childless Not by Choice with Sa-Vi-La Morgan. If you are a man who is childless not by choice, or anyone else who does not fit the demographic, Childless Not by Choice supporters with Sa-Vi-La Morgan, because I'm working on what to do with the men. There are several men in that group, in the supporters group. I do not want to mix the two demographics, so men and women together, for obvious reasons. And so the Childless Not by Choice with Sa-Vi-La Morgan Facebook group is just for women who are childless not by choice. We also have a community on the website, www.childlessnotbychoice.net. And that community is open to women who have adopted, women who are childless not by choice who have adopted, childless not by choice who have married a man with children. And so there's separate groups and forums within the community. And that's for women only again. When you join, you can join with your Facebook credentials or by creating a login ID and password. And when you visit the website, you will notice that you can listen to all of the podcast episodes. You can read all of the blogs, most of them, many of them written by guest bloggers who happen to be childless not by choice women on the platform. And then there are resources, the resources tab there, so that you can download and print PDFs that will help you as you navigate the childless not by choice life.
So all of these links and all of this information, we will, of course, make sure that we have in the show notes and provide those to everyone, including Ms. Morgan. We're going to ask you to provide us a list of some books that you would recommend that folks in this space grab, or even maybe a list of scriptures that would be good. Let's close with this question and this idea. So as people listen to this, what's the silver lining in all of this, Ms. Morgan? What's the ray of sunshine and the uptick, if you will, on this entire message?
For me personally, it is that I get to help others, because I don't know if you've recognized it or not, but one of my gifts is the gift of encouragement. And so I love to encourage others. And so I get to encourage other people. I get to encourage other men and women around the world who are childless not by choice. And that's what I set out to do, and it's actually happening, which is totally awesome. So I get to do that. That's my silver lining. The silver lining also is that I have my wits about me. I didn't lose my mind when I thought I would. I really honestly had a point where I just thought I would lose it because I was going through so much. I mean, like you said, there is so much we didn't get to discuss today, but after my hysterectomy, there were complications. And I could have died. If it, not from blood poisoning, it would have been from, sepsis. Is that what it's called when it's blood poisoning? So septic, I could have been septic. And so even in that, it just seems, and I can see all of the times throughout my life when it seemed like the devil was coming for me. He was trying to take me out. But the silver lining is I made it through with my mental health intact. I made it through physically, emotionally, spiritually. Yes, I have my moments, but I can honestly say that I feel good spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally.
And without a doubt, you trust God on a level like never before, and that cannot be understated by any stretch of the imagination.
Exactly. And so when you trust God on that level, I know you're closing here, but when you trust God on that level, when people, let me use I guess maybe, I don't know, a term that people use a lot these days, when people come for you, people come for you and you're trusting God on that level, it just seems like, okay, whatever, do your best. Give it your best shot because I'm good. I'm good. And you just don't understand what I've been through to make me this okay with you trying to take pot shots. It's okay. Give it your best shot.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We dug into the deep end of the pool today, and I'm just encouraged and excited because it is stories like this, it is life journeys and testimonies like this, where one person walks through it, where others that may have sunk or died or lost their minds are now encouraged because they say, if Civilla Morgan can make it through all of her challenges and realities and put this struggle out on the forefront to be transparent enough to say that God's got you, God has not forgotten about you, and really, if I could say it this way, in a sense, I heard you saying today, Miss Morgan, to many others who experience this, you are enough. You are enough. The way that God made you and what God's doing in your life, you are enough. And so I hope that's the message that you take away today, guys, from this. You may not have had the issue of being childless, not by choice, but whether it was another prayer request or another desire, you and your relationship with God is enough to sustain you in whatever season and shape you're in. And so thank you all so much for listening again today. Thank you for sharing this podcast with others and sharing it on social media with your social media family. Our goal, as we said earlier, and as we say every week, is to provide tools and strategies for hearts to live inspired and for heads to live wise. So thank you again for joining us on another episode of the Wise Idea Podcast with Christopher J. Harris. I hope you have enjoyed our time together. If you did and you'd like additional resources and information, you can, of course, find all of that at thewise-idea-podcast.com. I invite you, of course, also to join the conversation on social media. I'm on Twitter and we're on Facebook at The Wise Idea. We are on Instagram at The Wise Idea Podcast. We also have a Facebook group called The Wise Idea Podcast on Facebook. And I'd love you also to follow me personally on social media. On Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and guess what? Even Pinterest, you can find me at CJ Harris, ONE. Finally, if you've enjoyed what you've heard, head over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review for other listeners to find us. We are on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and coming soon to Spotify and iHeartRadio. I would also love to hear from you directly. Send us an email to info@The-Wise Idea Podcast. Thank you again for joining us. I look forward to seeing you the next time. And of course, you know what I say every single week. Live wisely.